If you want a little height for your 2010 through 2024 Toyota 4Runner, but you don't want to get super involved with a full lift kit, this Rough Country 2-inch spacer suspension lift kit in an anodized red finish is a great alternative. Now I do want to note that this does not work with the X-Reyes system and does not fit the Pro models, TRD Pro specifically, so just keep that in mind when you're checking this out. However, if you don't fit into those two categories, this kit is a simple and affordable way to get some better clearance and create a more defined look out of your 4Runner, whether you're doing some daily driving or doing any lighter off-roading. Now, while increasing the capability of your rig, the best part about this kit is that you get the height while keeping your factory suspension components if you don't want to change the current feel of your ride, but you do want to get a boost in height for your 4Runner. Now this kit features a spacer design, so it comes with 2 strut spacers for the front and 2 coil spacers for the rear, lifting the 4Runner front and back for overall increased ground clearance, better clearance inside the wheel well for better up travel, and the ability to fit up to a 33-inch tire. Now all that additional space opens up extra capability for your 4Runner if you're taking it off-road, being able to clear obstacles a little bit easier, and opening up room in the wheel well for better articulation without stuffing your wheel well or wheel into the wheel well. Now it also just makes the rig look much more level and a bit more aggressive while maintaining that factory ride quality for a comfortable OE experience that you're normally used to. Now the construction here is simple with a machine-built aluminum spacer for the front, which has an anodized red finish to protect from any corrosion. Now the rear spacers, these are a little bit different. They're made of a composite material, which is essentially a super tough plastic, so they'll have a lot of structural rigidity while not having to worry about rust or corrosion when these are mounted up to the 4Runner. Now I do want to point out that the rear spacers measure true to the lift height at 1 inch, being a little less than the front for a more level appearance, but because the front is an independent front suspension, these spacers are going to measure out also to 1 inch. Now the spring compression and the suspension geometry, as well as this 1-inch spacer here, all of that combined with the independent front suspension, they work together to create that 2 inches of lift in the front. Now with that out of the way, this kit also comes with all of the required hardware out of the kit in order to completely bolt this on with no modifications required. Now this is an affordable choice for a lift kit, coming in at about $200. Now as I mentioned, compared to others on the page, this is a solid alternative to a more involved lift kit if you know you're looking to keep it very simple, you don't want to go overboard on the lift height compared to other higher options, and you're looking to keep that factory ride quality. Now this is also a lift and a level compared to other more simplistic leveling kits if you know you want something that's slightly more aggressive without getting too complicated. Now install can be done with standard hand tools here, so this does get a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. I recommend some mechanical experience in order to tackle this job. However, if you have that in the right setup, it should take about 3 hours or so to get this bolted up. Now I also do recommend an alignment after the install just for the best wear and the best performance. It's best practice after lifting any vehicle, so that is something that you should definitely take a look at after this is bolted up. However, at this point I'm going to hand it over to one of our installers here so they can show you a detailed breakdown on how this bolts up to your 4Runner, whether you're tackling the job or you're just curious about the install. So that's going to wrap it up for what I have to say. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a hammer, needle nose pliers, 17 and 19 millimeter wrenches, 14, 15, 17, and 19 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, an extension, 10, 12, 14, and 19 millimeter sockets, 17 and 19 millimeter swivel sockets, a pry bar, and ratchet straps.
What's up guys? Today we're installing a lift kit on our 4Runner. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory suspension components, and I'll meet you back here for the install. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect our brake line brackets. The one on the upper control arm is a 10 millimeter bolt, whereas the one in the knuckle is a 12. So I've got my 10 millimeter socket to start on the upper control arm, so let's get that out. So first we'll get our upper control arm bracket. So we'll take that 10 millimeter socket to remove this bolt. Then we can pop our bracket out of the way, throw our bolt back, and then we'll switch to our 12 millimeter socket for the brake line bracket and our knuckle.
And then same thing, pop that out of the way and thread our bolt back in. Next we can remove the 18mm nut holding our sway bar end link in. So we'll grab an 18mm socket to pop that off. Next we can disconnect our tie rod end. So we'll grab a pair of needle nose pliers to bend back our cotter pin. Next we can take our 19mm socket to remove our nut. Next we can grab a hammer to tap on the side of the knuckle here to break our ball joint free. Now once we get this to pop free, we can remove our nut and get our tie rod end off to the side. Next we can loosen up our lower strut mount. So we'll grab a 19mm socket for our nut side and a 19mm wrench for our bolt side to loosen that up. Next we can disconnect our upper control arm ball joint from our knuckle. So grab a pair of needle nose pliers for our cotter pin, and then we can grab our 19mm socket to loosen up our nut. And now with our nut loosened up, we can do the same thing where we're smacking the side of the knuckle. Make sure you leave that nut on so your whole knuckle doesn't go flying once it pops free. And then we'll just pull down on our upper control arm and fully remove our castle nut. Next we can come to the top of our strut tower and remove our 3 nuts. So we'll take a 14mm ratcheting wrench to do so. Now I'm going to end up leaving this nut on there hand tight until we're ready to remove our strut. Now at this point you can repeat that entire process on the other side because we do need to be able to move our sway bar to get our strut out. Next we can remove our lower strut bolt. And then we can go back up top and remove that nut. And then we can pull our sway bar up and out of the way. And then once you have your strut out on one side, you can do that same thing on the other side.
Alrighty guys, so now we've got the front all buttoned up. We're going to move on to the rear, and the first thing we're going to do is we have it under pole jacks here just to support the weight of the differential because we're going to be removing some stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the factory shock. So now we did go ahead and spray that top mounting stud with penetrating lubricant just to help loosen it up. So now we're going to use our 17mm wrench to go ahead and run our nut off. So now once you get that nut almost off, you want to leave it a couple threads on. We'll go ahead and remove the lower mounting point. That way we can drop the shock down and grab onto the nut in the upper washer without it falling into the chassis anywhere. Now we'll go ahead and remove our bottom mounting bolt using our 17mm socket on our impact. Now if you do find it's a little stiff getting off of this dowel, you can go ahead and grab a small soft mallet and just give it a few taps to come off. Now we'll go ahead and get our top mounting nut the rest of the way off. This is kind of a tight spot, so you may need to still use your wrench all the way. And you want to support your shock with your other hand while you're doing this. Once it's good and loose, Go ahead and pull our shock out. Again, you want to make sure you don't drop your top nut, bushing, or washer. We'll go ahead and remove our shock. Now our next step is going to be to disconnect our sway bar from our end links here. Now you can go from the top here from the bushings. I personally like to take it off from the bottom of the end link here to the sway bar. It just makes things a little bit easier and simpler. So we're going to grab a 17 mil ratcheting wrench, remove the nut from this side, and pry this out of the sway bar. We've got our nut removed. Go ahead and grab a pry bar. We're going to go on the outside of this to our end link here. And just give it a little bit of persuasion, then move that stud to the outside of the sway bar mount. So now we're going to remove our track bar bolt on our differential side, and then we're going to loosen the bolt up but not fully remove it on the body side. So we'll grab our 19 mil socket on our impact to do that. Get that loosened up. That's going to give us enough travel. You may not even have to loosen the other side. If this does move, you should be good. Next, we'll go ahead and use our pole jacks to lower our differential down to get our springs out. Make sure this stays loose and doesn't get caught. Actually bring this up just a bit like that. Now that we have this lowered down, we can go ahead and remove our springs. Just have to get it up over the lower perch. You want to watch your brake lines here. Go ahead and pop those out. Once you have this one out, you can go ahead and remove the other one as well.
So now we're going to install our coil spring spacer. This is going to go at the top of our coil spring. We've got a bolt that we're going to use to bolt it up to our frames.
Now in our upper spring mount, we've got this big oval hole and the smaller circle hole. We're going to go through the oval hole to get our bolt up in there and then drop it through the smaller hole. Then you can take your spacer, get that lined up with your bolt, and then we've got a washer and a nut for the bottom side of that bolt. Now get a 19mm wrench on the bolt side and a 19mm socket on the nut side and tighten that down.
Now we're going to take our factory spring and spring isolator, slide it up into place, and then we'll get it onto our axle.
And just make sure you're properly seated on the top and the bottom, which we are.
And then we can start jacking up on our pole jack to lift our axle up. Now we're going to reinstall our shock. So I'm going to go between our lower control arm and that brake line. Get it angled up into your upper mount and then work it onto the lower. Once you have it started, just take a rubber mallet and tap it in. And then I'm just going to thread my bolt in there. And now I'm just going to angle our stud to the hole while I raise up on my pole jack and get it into place. Now before we go all the way up, we're going to slide our bushing onto that stud, followed by that washer. And then we're just gonna keep raising that pole jack to lift our axle. And then we can get that nut on. And then we'll grab our 17mm wrench and tighten down the nut. Now take a 17mm ratcheting wrench and tighten down your lower shock bolt. Next, reinstall your end link into your sway bar. Thread the nut on the other side. Then grab a 17mm ratcheting wrench and tighten that down. And then you can repeat that same process on the other side. Next, we need to reinstall our track bar bolt. Now our hole doesn't quite line up right now. So what I'm gonna do is take a ratchet strap. I've got one side on the frame up there, right above the other side of the track bar. I'm gonna get my other hook on the axle here, below our track bar. And I'm gonna use that to pull the axle towards the right so that our hole lines up. Right there, we're looking pretty good, so I'm gonna grab our bolt and thread that in. So now pull down your track bar to line up that hole. And then start threading your bolt in. And then take a 19mm socket to tighten it down. And then release your ratchet strap and remove it. So now with our factory strut removed, we're ready to install our spacer. We're gonna slide this right onto the studs and reinstall our factory top nuts. Now take your 14mm socket, tighten those all down. Now do the same thing for your other strut. So now we're gonna get our strut into our upper mount, thread on our new nuts. So I'm gonna lift up on the sway bar here, slide it right in under there. Now line up the hole for your lower strut mount and slide your bolt through. And then install the washer and the nut on the other side. Then grab a 19mm socket and wrench and tighten that down. Now take a 15mm ratcheting wrench, tighten down your top nuts. We're going to start in the back. Next, we're going to reconnect our knuckle to our upper control arm ball joint. So we're going to pull this over, and then I've got a pry bar so I can pry that down into the knuckle and then thread my nut on. And now I'm going to grab my 19mm socket and tighten that down. And then we just want to make sure that the hole in the stud lines up with the slot in the cotter pin. Ours is a little bit off, so we're going to have to tighten a little bit more. Make sure you don't loosen this to get it to line up. And now grab your cotter pin, slide it through the hole in that stud, and click it into place. Now we're going to start at our upper control arm, get our bracket back into place, and thread in our bolt. And then we'll come down on our knuckle
and replace our brake line bracket. And then we can slide our sway bar end link through the knuckle. Then take a 17mm socket to tighten down your end link. And then a 12mm socket for your brake line bracket. And a 10mm socket for your ABS bracket. Next, we can reinstall our tie rod into the knuckle. Thread on your castle nut. And then grab a 19mm socket to tighten it down. Just like the upper ball joint, we're gonna make sure that the hole lines up with the slots in the cotter pin. If you need to turn it a little bit more, tighten it, don't loosen. And then slide your cotter pin through that hole. And then just bend those 2 tabs. Repeat on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Rough Country 2-inch spacer suspension lift kit in anodized red for your 2010 into 24 four-wheel drive 4Runner without XREAS system and excluding TRD Pro. Thank you for watching, and for all things 4Runner, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.